Part 5. The New Order. 6 months had passed since the Vexari attacked New Haven. Ambassador Claire Rodriguez stood in the same council chamber where Admiral John Blake had been laughed at and dismissed. But everything was different now. The Treaty of Terminus Point was ready for signing, and the atmosphere was one of respectful silence. The treaty was comprehensive. It granted humanity full voting membership in the Galactic Council. It recognized all human territorial claims and established clear boundaries that no one could violate. It created a war crimes tribunal to prosecute those responsible for the New Haven massacre, and it required the Vexari to pay substantial reparations to the families of the victims. Claire watched as representatives from each major power signed the document. The Vexari signed first, their ambassador's hand shaking slightly as he pressed his seal into the treaty. Then the Thornid Collective, the Luxian Empire, and a dozen other species. Finally, Claire added Earth's signature. "This treaty represents a new beginning," she said to the assembled delegates. "Humanity joins the Galactic Council not as junior members or newcomers to be patronized, but as equals. We hope this marks the start of a long period of peace and cooperation." Back on Earth, President Helen Morris watched the signing ceremony from the White House. Around her stood the military leaders who had prosecuted the war so effectively. General Marcus Cole, Admiral Susan Pierce, Dr. Nathan Cross, and others who had worked tirelessly to defend humanity's interests. "We changed everything," Marcus said quietly. "The galaxy will never look at us the same way again." Helen nodded. "We showed them who we really are. Not warmongers seeking conquest, but not victims who can be pushed around either. We gave them every chance to choose peace. When they chose violence, we responded decisively." "Do you think the peace will last?" Susan asked. "I think the lesson will last," Helen replied. "The Vexari learned that attacking Earth has consequences. The Thornids learned that we can see everything they do. Every species in the galaxy now understands that when humanity gives a warning, we mean it. That understanding should keep the peace for a long time." Dr. Nathan Cross looked thoughtful. "We revealed a lot of our technology during the war. The quantum destabilizers, the stealth systems, the advanced targeting. They know some of our secrets now." "Some," Helen agreed, "but not all. And more importantly, they know we can innovate. They know we can develop new weapons and tactics faster than they can. That uncertainty is almost as valuable as the actual weapons." Captain Ryan Foster stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching as his ship passed through Vexari space. The destroyer was part of a joint patrol now. Human and Vexari ships working together to maintain security in the region. It felt strange after months of combat, but it was progress. Lieutenant Karen Matthews walked up beside him. "New orders just came through, sir. We're being reassigned to the Explorer Corps. They want us to survey systems beyond the Outer Rim." Ryan smiled. "Back to exploration instead of war. I can definitely live with that. What do you think, Karen? Ready to see what's out there?" "More than ready, sir. Though I have to admit, part of me will miss the combat systems. We got very good at using them." "We did," Ryan agreed. "But that's the thing about humanity. We're adaptable. We can be explorers, scientists, traders, diplomats, and when necessary, we can be warriors. The key is knowing when each role is needed." He looked out at the stars. "The Vexari learned the hard way that we're not helpless. But they're also learning that we're not monsters. We could have glassed their homeworld. We could have killed millions of civilians in revenge for New Haven. But we didn't. We targeted their military, crippled their ability to threaten us, and then we offered peace." "Do you think they appreciate that?" Karen asked. "Some of them do. The smart ones understand that we showed restraint even in our retaliation. The others will figure it out eventually." On the Vexari homeworld, Ambassador Vexkoth walked through the memorial garden dedicated to those who had died in the war. 8,000 Vexari military personnel had been killed. It was a fraction of what it could have been if the humans had targeted civilians the way the Vexari had. A young Vexari officer approached him. The officer's name was Vextira, and she had lost her brother in the fighting. "Ambassador, I have a question. Why did we not understand how dangerous the humans were?" Vexkoth looked at the memorial stones, each one bearing a name and a story. "Because we were arrogant. We assumed that because we were older and more established, we were superior. We assumed that a young species seeking peace was weak. We never considered that they might be choosing peace from a position of strength. But they gave us a warning," Vextira said. "Admiral Blake told us they were holding back. Why did we not listen? Because we thought it was bluster. We thought they were trying to seem more dangerous than they really were. Vexkoth turned to face her. Never make that mistake again. If someone warns you they are holding back, believe them. Because when they stop holding back, you may not survive the lesson. What should we do now? Now we rebuild. We honor the treaty. We work with humanity instead of against them. And we make sure the next generation of Vexari understands what happened here and why it happened, so it never happens again. Claire Rodriguez returned to Earth to a hero's welcome. She had stood alone before the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy and refused to back down. She had negotiated a treaty that ensured Earth's security and prosperity. People lined the streets as her transport made its way to the United Nations building. But as she sat in her office later that evening, looking out at the night sky, she felt the weight of what had happened. Thousands had died in the war. Families on both sides had lost loved ones. The trust between species had been damaged and would take generations to fully repair. Her assistant, Lieutenant Paul Bennett, knocked on the door. "Ambassador, you have several requests for interviews. Everyone wants to hear about your experience at the council." "Tell them I'll do a press conference tomorrow," Claire said. "But Paul, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Ambassador. Do you think we did the right thing? The war, the destruction, all of it. Was it justified?" Paul didn't hesitate. "We tried diplomacy first. We warned them multiple times. We showed restraint for as long as we possibly could. When they murdered 15,000 of our people, we responded. But even in our response, we were measured. We targeted military assets. We avoided civilian casualties. We could have done far worse, but we chose not to." He paused. "And then when they asked for peace, we gave it to them. We didn't demand their unconditional surrender or occupation of their worlds. We asked for justice, reparations, and respect. That's not revenge, Ambassador. That's self-defense and accountability." Claire nodded slowly. "I hope history sees it that way. History will see that humanity tried every peaceful option before resorting to force. And when force was necessary, we used it effectively, but not cruelly. That's something to be proud of." President Helen Morris gave a televised address to Earth and all human colonies. She stood at a podium looking directly into the cameras, speaking to billions of people. 6 months ago, the Vexari Empire attacked New Haven and murdered 15,000 of our people. It was an unprovoked act of aggression meant to intimidate us and keep us in our place. Today, we have signed a peace treaty that ensures such an attack will never happen again. She paused, letting her words sink in. We did not want this war. We tried diplomacy. We tried warnings. We tried every peaceful solution we could think of. But when our people were killed, when our warnings were ignored, we had to respond, and we did so with precision, determination, and strength. The galaxy now understands that humanity is not a species to be pushed around or dismissed. We are not seeking empire or conquest. We are not trying to dominate others. But we will defend ourselves. We will protect our people, and we will keep our promises, both the promises of friendship and the promises of consequences for aggression. Helen looked directly into the camera. This war taught the galaxy several important lessons. First, that when humanity gives a warning, we mean it. Second, that our preference for peace should never be mistaken for inability or unwillingness to fight. Third, that we have the technology, tactics, and determination to defend ourselves against any threat. And fourth, that even in war we maintain our principles. We did not target civilians. We did not use excessive force. We fought with honor. She smiled slightly. Now we begin the work of peace. We will build relationships with species who respect us. We will trade, share knowledge, and explore together. We will be good neighbors and good partners. But we will always remember the lessons of this war, and we will always be ready to defend ourselves if necessary. The address ended with a simple statement that would become humanity's unofficial motto among the stars. We came in peace. We offered friendship. We gave fair warning. Remember that. On Terminus Point, the Galactic Council began its regular session for the first time since the war. Humanity now had a full seat at the table, with voting rights equal to any other major power. Claire Rodriguez took her place among the other ambassadors. No longer standing alone at the center of the chamber, the Luxian representative, whose crystalline form pulsed with friendly colors, approached her before the session. Part 4. The Message Ambassador. Claire Rodriguez stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber once more, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. There was no laughter, no condescension, just silence and barely hidden fear. 6 weeks had passed since the Vexari attacked New Haven. In those 6 weeks, humanity had destroyed over 600 Vexari warships, crippled their industrial capacity, and brought their military to the edge of collapse, and they had done it without losing a single ship. The Vexari seat was occupied by a new ambassador. Vexthor, who had laughed at human warnings, was dead. He had been on a military station when human forces destroyed it. His replacement, Vexkoth, looked like he had aged a decade in the past month. Ambassador Rodriguez, the Thornid Collective spoke through their translators. The Council has grave concerns about the human military campaign against the Vexari Empire. The level of destruction has been extreme. Claire looked around the chamber slowly, making eye contact with each delegation. Extreme? Let me tell you about extreme. 15,000 civilians were murdered at New Haven. Families, children, people who had nothing to do with politics or military matters. The Vexari killed them from orbit without warning. That is extreme. But the response, the Luxian representative pulsed with agitated colors, has been disproportionate. You have destroyed hundreds of ships, crippled their economy. Thousands of Vexari military personnel have died. Military personnel, Claire emphasized. We have hit military targets exclusively. Not one civilian has been harmed by human forces. We've been very careful about that. Every strike has been precise. Every target has been verified. We're fighting a war, but we're fighting it with rules. The Vexari didn't extend us the same courtesy. Vexkoth stood slowly. He looked tired and defeated. Ambassador Rodriguez, the Vexari Empire wishes to negotiate an end to hostilities. We acknowledge that we made errors in judgment. Errors in judgment, Claire repeated. Her voice was cold. Is that what you call murdering 15,000 people? An error in judgment? I am not defending what happened at New Haven, Vexkoth said. It was wrong. It was a crime. Those responsible will be punished. But continuing this war serves no one. We ask for peace talks. Claire was quiet for a moment. She had been authorized to discuss peace terms, but Earth wanted certain conditions met first. The Vexari Empire will publicly admit that the attack on New Haven was a war crime. You will pay reparations to the families of the victims. You will hand over those responsible for ordering the attack for trial. You will withdraw all forces from the buffer zones established by treaty, and you will recognize human territorial sovereignty without qualification. Those terms are harsh, Vexkoth said. Those terms are justice, Claire replied. You murdered our people. You violated treaties. You ignored diplomatic warnings. Now you face the consequences. If these terms are too harsh for you, we can continue the war. Your military will be completely destroyed within another month. Is that preferable? The chamber was silent. Everyone knew Claire was right. The Vexari military was in collapse. Human forces were hitting them everywhere at once, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. We accept the terms, Vexkoth said quietly. We will begin negotiations immediately. But the Thornid Collective was not satisfied. Their representative stood, thousands of insects speaking as one voice. And what about the rest of the galaxy? Are we to simply accept that humanity can wage war with such efficiency? That they possess weapons we knew nothing about? This is a security threat to all of us. Claire turned to face the Thornid delegation. You're absolutely right. We are a security threat to anyone who attacks us, to anyone who murders our civilians, to anyone who breaks treaties and ignores diplomatic warnings. We are a very serious threat to those people. You cannot threaten the entire council, the Thornid voice buzzed angrily. I'm not threatening anyone, Claire said. I'm stating facts. Let me be very clear about something. Earth did not want this war. We tried diplomacy. Admiral Blake stood in this chamber and gave you all a warning. He told you we were holding back. He told you that you didn't want to see what happened when we stopped. Every single person in this chamber laughed at him. You called us children. You called us weak. You dismissed our concerns and violated our territory. She paused and looked around the chamber again. The Vexari murdered 15,000 of our people to prove they were in charge. Now their military is in ruins. That is what happens when you ignore a warning from Earth. That is what happens when you mistake our preference for peace as an inability to wage war, Lieutenant. Commander Greg Sullivan piloted his stealth reconnaissance ship through Thornid space. His mission was classified at the highest level. Intelligence had detected massive fleet movements. The Thornids were gathering their forces, possibly preparing for an attack on human territory. Greg's ship was designed to be invisible. It had stealth technology that made it nearly impossible to detect. He had been watching the Thornid fleet build up for 3 days now, documenting everything. What he saw was concerning. The Thornids had at least 5,000 ships gathering in their home system. That was enough to overwhelm human defenses if they attacked all at once. Greg sent his findings back to Earth and waited for orders. The response came within 2 hours. Shadow Protocol. Deliver the message. Greg smiled grimly. Shadow Protocol meant he was authorized to let the Thornids know they had been detected. It was a psychological operation designed to show potential enemies that humanity could see everything they were doing. He activated his ship's communication array and broadcast on all Thornid frequencies. The message would reach every ship, every command center, every military installation. This is Lieutenant Commander Greg Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force. We know you're gathering your fleet. We know you're planning to attack human territory. We know where every one of your ships is located. We know where your shipyards are. We know where your command centers are. We know where your leaders sleep at night. He paused, letting that sink in. The Thornids would be panicking right now, trying to figure out how he had penetrated their space undetected. This is your only warning. Stand down your fleet. Return your ships to normal patrol patterns. If you attack human territory, what we did to the Vexari will look like mercy compared to what we'll do to you. We don't want war with the Thornid Collective, but if you force our hand, we will destroy you. The choice is yours. You have 48 hours to respond. Greg cut the transmission and activated his stealth systems again. Thornid ships would be searching for him now, but they wouldn't find him. His ship was already moving away, leaving no trace. Back on Earth, President Helen Morris watched the transmission. That was quite a message, she said to General Marcus Cole. It was necessary, Marcus replied. The Thornids were mobilizing to attack us. They saw what we did to the Vexari and decided we needed to be dealt with before we became stronger. This message lets them know that we're watching, that we have capabilities they don't understand, and that attacking us would be suicide. Will it work? It will if they're smart. The Thornids are aggressive, but they're not stupid. They'll realize that if we could penetrate their security this completely, we could destroy their fleet before they even leave their home system. Helen nodded. And if they're not smart? If they attack anyway? Then we follow through on the threat. We destroy their military capability just like we did with the Vexari, but I don't think it will come to that. The message was clear. They understand what's at stake. 48 hours later, the Thornid Collective sent a response. Their fleet was standing down. They requested a meeting with human diplomats to discuss security concerns. They made it clear that they had no intention of attacking human territory. The message had been received. The lesson had been learned. In the Galactic Council chamber, Claire Rodriguez prepared to deliver Earth's final statement on the war. The Council had called a special session to discuss the peace terms with the Vexari and to address the broader implications of human military power. Claire stood at the speaking platform, looking calm and confident. The war with the Vexari is ending. Peace terms have been agreed upon. Those responsible for the massacre at New Haven will face justice. Reparations will be paid. Treaties will be honored. This is what Earth wanted from the beginning. She looked around the chamber. But I want to make something very clear to this council, and to every species listening. We gave you fair warning. We told you we were holding back. We told you that our preference for peace should not be mistaken for weakness. You ignored us. You laughed at us. One of you murdered our civilians to prove a point. Now you've seen what happens when humanity stops holding back. We are not conquerors. We are not interested in empire. We want to live in peace with our neighbors, but we will defend ourselves. And we will protect our people, and we will respond to aggression with overwhelming force. Claire paused for effect. This is both a promise and a warning. A promise to those who deal with us honestly and respect our sovereignty. We will be good neighbors, good trading partners, and good allies. And a warning to those who might consider attacking us in the future. We mean what we say. When we give a warning, believe it. Part 3. The Storm. The Vexari mining station in the Kepler sector had been operating for 300 years. It processed rare minerals that were essential for advanced electronics. The station commander, Veximal, was proud of his post. It was important work, and the station was well protected by a full battle group. Veximal was reviewing production reports when the alarm started screaming. His second-in-command rushed onto the command deck, his scales showing the color of alarm. Commander, we have human ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. 4 vessels. All destroyer class. Vexmal felt a surge of anger. How dare they? After the lesson taught at New Haven, the humans should be cowering in their space, not attacking Vexari installations. 4 destroyers? He said. Against our 12 warships, including 2 dreadnoughts? This will be over in minutes. All ships move to attack formation. Destroy them. The Vexari battle group moved forward with confidence. They had superior numbers. They had larger ships. They had been the dominant military power in this region for centuries. These humans were about to learn a harsh lesson about challenging their betters. Captain Ryan Foster watched the Vexari ships approaching on his tactical display. They were moving in their standard formation, the same one they had used for the past 100 years. It was in every military database studied by every human officer. The Vexari were predictable. Just like the simulations, Ryan said. Karen, deploy the drones. Lieutenant Karen Matthews entered the command into her console. From the Vengeance and the 3 other human destroyers, thousands of small objects launched. They were no bigger than basketballs, moving fast and spreading out in a cloud. On the Vexari command ship, a sensor officer reported the launch. Commander, the human ships have released small objects. Thousands of them. Vexmal barely looked up. Probably chaff or decoys. Ignore them. Focus on the actual ships. That decision lasted about 30 seconds before it became clear it was a mistake. The drones reached the Vexari formation and suddenly activated. They didn't explode. Instead, they released a pulse of energy that made space itself seem to ripple and tear. Shields failed across the Vexari fleet. Power systems flickered and died. Computers crashed. The quantum destabilizers were doing exactly what they had been designed to do. Now, Ryan said calmly, all ships fire everything. The 4 human destroyers opened up with their main cannons. These weren't energy weapons or missiles. They were magnetic accelerators that fired solid slugs of tungsten at a significant fraction of light speed. The rounds punched through the Vexari ships like they were made of paper. The first Vexari cruiser came apart in a cloud of debris. The second lost its entire forward section. A third tried to turn away, but the human ships were faster, more maneuverable. Within 90 seconds, 8 Vexari warships were either destroyed or floating dead in space. Vexamal stared at his displays in shock. This wasn't possible. The humans had only 4 ships. His battle group had 12. But 8 of his ships were gone or crippled, and the humans hadn't taken a single hit. Return fire, he screamed. All weapons target the lead human ship. The 2 remaining Vexari dreadnoughts tried to bring their weapons to bear, but the human destroyers moved with impossible agility. They dodged and weaved, their engines far superior to anything the Vexari had. Every shot the Vexari fired missed. Every shot the humans fired hit. Target their command ship, Ryan ordered. I want prisoners. I want them to tell their people what happened here. Karen locked weapons onto Vexmal's ship. Surgical strike ready. Targeting the bridge only. Fire. The shot was perfect. The tungsten round hit the dreadnought's bridge at relativistic speed. The entire command section exploded, but the rest of the ship remained intact. Emergency bulkheads sealed, keeping the crew alive but leaving them helpless. The second dreadnought tried to run. Its captain had seen enough. But the destroyer Armstrong cut off its escape route and fired on its engines. The massive ship went dead in space, unable to move or fight. Open a channel to the surviving Vexari, Ryan said. Moments later, Vexmal appeared on the screen. He was injured, his scales burned and bleeding. His command chair was half destroyed. Behind him, his bridge crew worked frantically to restore basic systems. You will tell your people what happened here today, Ryan said. His voice was cold and hard. You will tell them that Earth warned you. We told you we were holding back. We told you that you didn't want to see what happened when we stopped. You laughed at us. You called us weak. Then you murdered 15,000 civilians to prove a point. Vexmal tried to speak, but Ryan continued. You will tell them that this is what happens when you ignore a warning from humanity. You will tell them that we destroyed your entire battle group in less than 5 minutes. You will tell them that we could have killed every Vexari on this station. But we chose not to because we don't murder civilians like you do. And you will tell them that this is only the beginning. Ryan cut the transmission and turned to his crew. Destroy the mining station. All infrastructure, all equipment. But scan for life signs first. If there are Vexari civilians working there, give them time to evacuate to the escape pods. Sir, Karen said, the station is clear. All personnel are in the protected areas of the ship. Good. Fire when ready. The mining station, which had stood for 3 centuries, was reduced to debris in minutes. The human destroyers used precision strikes to take out the processing equipment, the storage facilities, and the docking structures. When they were done, there was nothing left that could be salvaged. Set course for the next target, Ryan ordered, and broadcast what happened here on all frequencies. I want every Vexari in this sector to know we're coming. Across Vexari space, similar attacks were happening. Human strike groups appeared without warning, destroyed military targets with surgical precision, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The Vexari military, which had seemed so powerful and invincible, was being systematically torn apart. In the Vexari home system, the military command center was in chaos. Reports were flooding in from dozens of locations. Mining stations destroyed, supply depots burning, patrol ships missing, entire battle groups wiped out. General Vexcon, the supreme commander of Vexari forces, stared at the tactical display in disbelief. How is this possible? They have a fraction of our numbers. His intelligence officer, a younger Vexari named Vexitara, pulled up analysis reports. Sir, the humans are not fighting like we expected. They're not gathering their fleet for a major battle. They're using small groups to hit us everywhere at once. Our ships can't catch them. They're faster than us. Their weapons are more advanced than our intelligence suggested, and they're using tactics we've never seen before. What kind of tactics? Vexcon demanded. Guerrilla warfare, sir. Hit-and-run attacks. They strike, destroy their target, and disappear before we can respond. And they're targeting our infrastructure. Shipyards, supply lines, communication hubs. They're not trying to conquer territory. They're trying to cripple our ability to make war. Vexcon felt cold fear for the first time in his long military career. How many ships have we lost? In 3 weeks? Over 400. And we've destroyed exactly 0 human ships. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. 400 ships. The humans were destroying an average of 20 ships per day, and they were doing it without losing a single vessel of their own. What about New Haven? Vexcon asked quietly. The colony we destroyed. Was it a military target? Vextara hesitated. No, sir. It was a civilian farming colony. The attack was ordered by Ambassador Vexthor to send a message about Vexari dominance. Vexcon closed his eyes. They had killed civilians. They had murdered families to make a political point. And now the humans were responding with a level of military efficiency that was terrifying. Get me a channel to the human fleet, he said. Any human ship. I need to talk to them. Sir, they're not responding to any communications. Then broadcast on all frequencies. Tell them I want to negotiate. Tell them I want to discuss terms. What terms, sir? Vexcon looked at the tactical display one more time. Red markers showed burning stations and destroyed ships all across Vexari space. Whatever terms they'll accept. Because if we keep fighting, they're going to destroy our entire military. These humans, they gave us a warning. We ignored it. Now we're paying the price. Meanwhile on Earth, President Helen Morris received the daily briefing. The news was good from a military standpoint. Human casualties were minimal. The Vexari were being pushed back on every front. But she took no joy in it. How many Vexari dead? She asked. Military personnel only, about 8,000. We've been very careful to avoid civilian casualties. Helen nodded. Make sure that continues. We're fighting to defend ourselves and to send a message. We're not fighting to exterminate the Vexari. As soon as their leadership is willing to talk seriously, we listen. And if they don't want to talk, then we keep hitting them until they do. But we do it smart. We don't become the monsters they tried to make us into. Across the galaxy, other species were watching the war with growing concern. The humans, who had seemed so weak and unthreatening, were dismantling a major military power. And they were doing it efficiently, precisely, and without mercy. The Thornid Collective held an emergency meeting. The Luxian Empire. Part 1. The Warning. The stars looked different from the observation deck of Terminus Point. Admiral John Blake stood with his hands behind his back, watching ships from a dozen different species come and go from the massive station. Some were elegant and sleek, others were crude and industrial. All of them belonged to civilizations that had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Humanity had been doing it for barely 20 years. Commander Lisa Hayes walked up beside him. She carried a data pad with their presentation loaded and ready. The Galactic Council was waiting for them in the main chamber. This meeting would determine whether humanity could continue expanding peacefully or if trouble was coming. "Are you ready for this?" Lisa asked. John nodded slowly. "As ready as I'll ever be. We're going to tell them the truth. We're going to be polite and diplomatic, but we're also going to make sure they understand that we're serious." They walked together through the corridors of Terminus Point. The station was neutral ground, built by all the major powers working together. It floated in empty space between territories, a place where disputes could be settled without violence. At least that was the idea. The council chamber was enormous. It had to be, since some species were massive and others were tiny. The Vexari delegation sat in one section. They were tall reptilian beings with scales that shimmered under the lights. They had controlled their sector of space for 3,000 years. Next to them sat the Thornid Collective, a group of insect-like creatures that moved and spoke as one mind. Across from them, the Luxian Empire representatives floated in containment fields. They were made of living crystal and communicated through light patterns. John and Lisa took their positions at the speaking platform. Above them, holographic displays showed the current map of known space. Human territory was marked in blue. It looked small compared to the vast empires surrounding it. "Members of the council," John began. His voice was steady and clear. "Humanity comes before you today with a concern. Over the past 6 months, we have detected Vexari mining operations getting closer to our colony worlds. Some of these operations are now within the buffer zones we established by treaty. We ask that these operations cease immediately and that our territorial agreements be respected." The Vexari ambassador rose from his seat. His name was Vexthor, and he was old, even by Vexari standards. He looked at John the way someone might look at a child who had said something foolish. "Admiral Blake," Vexthor said. His voice had a hissing quality to it. "Your species has been part of this council for only 15 years. You occupy exactly 12 worlds. My people control more than 2,000 star systems. The minerals we are extracting are valuable to our economy. Surely you understand that the needs of an established civilization must take priority over the wants of newcomers." John felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. "Ambassador Vexthor, with respect, the treaties we signed guaranteed our territorial integrity. The buffer zones were agreed upon by all parties. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking that you honor your agreements." The Thornidae Collective made a chittering sound that their translators turned into laughter. "Your military consists of how many ships, Admiral? 300? 400? The Vexari fleet alone numbers over 10,000 vessels. Perhaps you should reconsider your position." Lisa stepped forward. She had been quiet until now, but John could see the anger in her eyes. "We didn't come here to compare fleet sizes. We came here to resolve this diplomatically, but I want to make something very clear to this council." She paused and looked around the chamber. "Humanity is showing restraint right now. We are being patient. We are following diplomatic channels. But we have a long history on our homeworld, a very long history of warfare. If you push us, if you break the treaties we signed in good faith, you will regret it." The chamber erupted. Several delegations began talking at once. Some were laughing. Others seemed offended that humans would dare to make threats. Vexthor raised his hand for silence. When the chamber quieted, he looked directly at Lisa. "Commander Hayes, I have studied your species. You fought wars among yourselves for thousands of years, this is true. But your weapons technology is primitive compared to ours. Your tactics are outdated. You have never faced an enemy that could strike from orbit or move faster than light. This bravado is understandable, but misguided. You are like children playing, with toys warning adults of consequences you cannot deliver." John took a deep breath. This was the moment he had been dreading. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this. "Ambassador, we are giving you fair warning. We are telling you now, clearly and directly, that we are holding back. We are choosing diplomacy over other options. We strongly advise you not to test our resolve." The Luxian representative pulsed with colors that the translator interpreted as amusement. "And if we do test this resolve, what will you do, Admiral? Will you attack the Vexari Empire with your few hundred ships? We will do what we have to do, John replied. But we are hoping it doesn't come to that. We are asking one more time for the Council to enforce the treaties and require the Vexari to withdraw from our buffer zones. Vexthor stood again. His posture was aggressive now, no longer polite. The Vexari Empire will continue our operations. If humanity has a problem with this, you may file a formal complaint with the Council. It will be reviewed in due time. Perhaps in a few years, we will address your concerns. He looked around the chamber. This matter is closed. John and Lisa exchanged glances. They had tried. They had followed every protocol. They had given clear warnings. What happened next would not be their fault. As they left the chamber, Lisa spoke quietly. They're not going to stop. They think we're weak? I know, John said. We need to report back to Earth. The President needs to know that diplomacy has failed. They walked back to their ship in silence. The station continued its normal operations around them. Ships came and went. Delegates from various species conducted business. Everything seemed normal. But John knew that something had changed. A line had been crossed. 2 weeks later, John was at his desk on Earth when the emergency broadcast came through. His assistant rushed in, her face pale. Admiral, there's been an attack. The Vexari hit New Haven Colony. They're saying it was a military operation, but sir, the entire settlement is gone. Early reports say 15,000 dead. There were families there, Admiral. Children. The Vexari used orbital bombardment. They didn't even give a warning. John stood slowly. He felt cold inside. The kind of cold that comes before terrible action. He thought about standing in that council chamber. He thought about Vexthor's arrogant smile. He thought about the warning they had given, the warning that had been laughed at and dismissed. He activated his communication console and sent a message to Fleet Command. Advise all ships to return to base immediately. Tell them to prepare for deployment. This is not a drill. Lisa appeared on his screen a moment later. She was at Fleet Headquarters. You've heard about New Haven? I've heard, John said. They killed civilians, Lisa. 15,000 people who were just trying to build a life on a new world. They murdered them to make a point. What happens now? John's expression was hard. Now they learn what happens when you ignore a warning from Earth. They wanted to see what we could do when we stopped holding back. They're about to get a very detailed education. Across Earth and throughout human space, the military began to mobilize. Ships that had been in dock for maintenance were rushed back into service. Weapons systems that had been kept secret were activated. Soldiers said goodbye to their families and reported for duty. The Vexari had made their choice. They had ignored diplomacy. They had violated treaties. They had murdered civilians. Now they would face the consequences. The galaxy was about to learn that when humanity gives a warning, they mean it. And when that warning is ignored, the response is swift and terrible. John Blake looked out at the stars one more time before heading to the war room. Somewhere out there, Vexthor was probably celebrating his victory, thinking he had put the humans in their place. He had no idea what was coming. None of them did. The warning had been given, the warning had been ignored. Now came the storm. Earth cautioned the galaxy. We were holding back. Now it's War Without Mercy Part 1. The Galactic Council's mistake. The Galactic Council had always viewed humanity as a curiosity. When Earth finally achieved faster-than-light travel and requested membership among the stars, the elder races welcomed them with condescending smiles. The Vexari, the Thornid Collective, and the crystalline Luxian Empire had ruled the galaxy for millennia, their civilizations ancient beyond human comprehension. Admiral John Blake stood before the council chambers on the neutral station of Terminus Point, his dress uniform crisp beneath the artificial lights. Beside him, Commander Lisa Hayes reviewed the diplomatic brief one final time. They had been sent to deliver a simple message, one that Earth's government hoped would prevent future conflict. Humanity requests that territorial boundaries be respected, John began, his voice steady. We've noticed increased Vexari mining operations near our colony worlds. We ask that you cease these activities. The Vexari ambassador, a towering reptilian creature named Vexthor, laughed. It was a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the chamber. Your species has been spacefaring for barely 2 decades, Vex Thor hissed. You occupy 12 worlds. We control thousands. You will learn your place or you will be taught it. Lisa stepped forward, her jaw tight. We're trying to be diplomatic here. We're showing restraint. But Earth has a long history of warfare. And we're warning you now, you don't want to see what happens when we stop holding back. The council chamber erupted in what could only be described as alien laughter. The Thornid representative, a cluster of insectoid beings speaking in unison, chittered mockingly. Holding back? Your weapons are primitive. Your fleets number in the dozens while ours number in the thousands. This bravado is amusing but foolish. John exchanged a glance with Lisa. They had tried. They had delivered Earth's warning as instructed. What happened next would not be on their conscience. 3 weeks later, a Vexari battle group obliterated the human colony on New Haven. 15,000 civilians died in the bombardment. The Vexari claimed it was a military necessity, that human expansion threatened their mining interests. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. Part 2. The Chains Come Off President. Helen Morris sat in the Situation Room beneath the White House, surrounded by the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Earth's top military strategists. The holographic display showed the smoldering ruins of New Haven, the colony that had been home to farmers, teachers, and families trying to build a new life among the stars. They killed civilians, General Marcus Cole said, his voice like gravel. 15,000 non-combatants. They glassed the entire settlement. Helen's face was carved from stone. We warned them. We gave them every opportunity to back down. Madam President, Admiral Susan Pierce interjected. The Galactic Council is already issuing statements saying we provoked this attack. They're positioning the Vexari as the victims. Helen stood, her hands pressed flat against the table. Then we'll show them what victims really look like. General Cole, you are authorized to activate Operation Reaper Protocol. Admiral Pierce, deploy the full fleet. Dr. Nathan Cross, I want every weapon system we've been developing in secret operational within 48 hours. Nathan, the head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Division, nodded grimly. The kinetic orbital platforms, the drone swarms, the quantum destabilizers, all of it? All of it, Helen confirmed. We tried peace. We tried warnings. They wanted war. Now they'll learn why humanity spent 10,000 years perfecting it. The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of the decision settling over everyone present. Captain Ryan Foster commanded the Earth Defense Force ship Vengeance, a destroyer that had been patrolling the outer colonies. When the orders came through, he read them twice to make sure he understood correctly. All restrictions lifted, he read aloud to his bridge crew. Rules of engagement, unrestricted warfare. Primary objective, total neutralization of Vexari military capability. Secondary objective, ensure the galaxy understands the cost of attacking Earth. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Karen Matthews, looked up from her console. Sir, these orders essentially authorize us to use any means necessary. Ryan met her gaze. The Vexari chose to murder civilians. They chose to ignore our warnings. Now they'll face the consequences. Helm, set course for the Vexari mining operation in the Kepler sector. Weapons start charging the main cannons. It's time to go to work. Across human space, similar scenes played out on dozens of ships. The Earth Defense Force, which had seemed small and unthreatening to the elder races, began to move with deadly purpose. What the galaxy didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this possibility since the day they left Earth. Every ship had been designed with lessons learned from centuries of human conflict. Every weapon system incorporated innovations that the peaceful elder races had never imagined. The Vexari were about to receive a comprehensive education in human warfare, and the tuition would be paid in blood and fire. Part 3. The storm breaks. The Vexari mining station in the Kepler sector had processed rare minerals for 3 centuries. It was defended by a battle group of 12 warships, including 2 dreadnoughts that had never seen defeat. The station commander, Vexmol, was reviewing ore shipment manifests when the alarms began to scream. Human ships dropping out of FTL, his sensor operator reported. 4 contacts. Destroyer-class vessels. Vexmol's eyes narrowed. 4 destroyers. They dare challenge us with 4 destroyers? This will be over quickly. All ships, attack formation. Destroy them. The Vexari battle group moved forward confidently. They had superior numbers, superior firepower, and centuries of combat experience. What they didn't have was any understanding of human tactical doctrine. Captain Ryan Foster watched the Vexari ships approaching in their standard formation. "Just like the simulations," he muttered. "They're predictable. Karen, deploy the drones." The Vengeance and her 3 sister ships suddenly unleashed thousands of small drones, each no larger than a basketball. The Vexari sensors detected them but dismissed them as insignificant. That was their second mistake. The first had been attacking New Haven. The drones swarmed the Vexari formation and suddenly each one detonated. They weren't explosive warheads, they were quantum destabilizers. Space itself seemed to ripple and tear around the Vexari ships. Shields failed. Hull plating cracked. Systems went haywire. "Now," Ryan ordered, "fire everything." The 4 human destroyers opened up with their main cannons, weapons that used magnetic acceleration to fire tungsten slugs at relativistic speeds. The rounds punched through the Vexari ships like paper. Within 90 seconds, 8 Vexari warships were destroyed or crippled. The 2 dreadnoughts tried to return fire, but the human ships moved with impossible agility, their engines and maneuvering systems far superior to anything the Vexari possessed. "Target their command ship," Ryan said calmly. "I want prisoners. I want them to tell their people what happened here." Lieutenant Karen Matthews locked weapons onto the lead dreadnought's bridge. "Surgical strike ready, sir. Fire." The shot was perfect. The dreadnought's bridge exploded, but the ship's hull remained intact. The second dreadnought tried to flee, but the destroyer Armstrong cut off its escape route and disabled its engines. "Patch me through to the surviving Vexari," Ryan ordered. Moments later, Vexmal's face appeared on the screen. His reptilian features twisted in shock and pain. "You will tell your people what happened here," Ryan said, his voice cold. "You will tell them that Earth warned you. You will tell them that we showed restraint and you mistook it for weakness. You will tell them that this is what happens when you murder our civilians. And you will tell them that this is only the beginning." Ryan cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "Destroy the mining station. Leave no infrastructure intact. Then we move to the next target." Across Vexari space, similar attacks were unfolding. Human strike groups were hitting military bases, supply depots, and industrial centers with surgical precision. The Vexari, who had thought themselves invincible, were being systematically dismantled. The galaxy was about to learn a hard truth. Humanity had spent millennia at war with itself, perfecting the art of destruction. The elder races had known peace for so long they had forgotten what real warfare looked like. That education was now in session, and the lesson would be written in fire across a dozen star systems. Part 4. The Galaxy Takes Notice. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session. Representatives from all the major powers gathered at Terminus Point, their holographic forms filling the great chamber. The mood was one of shock and growing fear. Ambassador Claire Rodriguez represented Earth, standing alone at the center of the chamber while accusations flew from all sides. "Your species has violated every convention of civilized warfare," the Thornid Collective buzzed angrily. "The attacks on Vexari territory have been brutal and disproportionate." Claire's expression remained calm, though fire burned in her eyes. "Disproportionate? The Vexari murdered 15,000 civilians without warning. We've been targeting military and industrial sites exclusively. Not a single Vexari civilian has been harmed by human forces. The scale of destruction," the Luxion ambassador began, "is measured and deliberate," Claire interrupted. "We warned you. Admiral Blake stood in this very chamber and